Today's recap is Altered. A van can be seen rummaging through a forest as something quickly darts across the screen. The vehicle stops and we hear someone yell, "Do it!" A man named Cody exits, carrying a harpoon. We then meet Duke, who's holding a shotgun, advancing cautiously, followed by Otis, who mutters, "I think this is the stupidest thing I've ever done." As the three move slowly through the trees, Duke spots a bear trap, warning the others to keep an eye out. Cody chases after something and manages to fire his harpoon, eventually announcing to Duke, "It's over here!" Cody freezes when he notices something hiding behind a plant. Suddenly, a creature leaps at him. As Cody tries to protect himself, a flash goes off, accompanied by a gunshot, and the deformed little being is sent flying. Duke lowers his gun and begins to track a trail of orange goo. He's startled by the sound of a bear trap snapping shut and loud screeching. Duke finds the creature caught in the trap, but before he can do much, he finds himself in a similar predicament, lying on the ground, with the little green dude slowly advancing toward him. With his shotgun out of reach, all Duke can do is cower. Just as the alien approaches, it falls into a hole, and Duke calls for the others. Later, the trio looks over the creature. Otis is in disbelief that they actually caught one, while Duke comments that it's even uglier than he remembers. Cody, without hesitation, fires the harpoon at it. As the three drive away, Otis expresses concern about being followed, a worry that Duke can't ease. In the back, Cody is ensuring the alien is secure and subdued. Otis is worried about Duke's injury and thinks the creature looks dead. Duke then warns Cody not to look it in the eyes. As Otis looks up at the stars, he points out a moving light, and Duke reassures him it's just a plane, though he's not entirely sure himself. Duke then instructs Otis to make a left, a decision that Cody questions. Recognizing it's off their intended route, Duke insists they need to get off the road. Cody, frustrated, brings up all the countless nights they spent searching for this thing, saying they can't trust him. Duke admits he never thought they'd actually catch the creature and asks for a better idea. Duke also reminds him that Wyatt is the only one who knows about these things, suggesting he has more knowledge than they do, a point Cody can't argue. Later, we see a man peering out from a window while a woman tries to reassure him that there's nothing out there. As the man walks away, a nasty scar along his abdomen becomes visible. The supportive partner sighs and says, "There never is." The man then checks to make sure all the windows are closed before looking through a peephole to check outside. He sees nothing but hears the distant chirp of insects, with lights illuminating his isolated house in the middle of nowhere. Later, the man is seen rifling through a safety deposit box, collecting some keys, and pausing to look at an old photograph. His focus then shifts to a strange object kept inside a glass jar. Just then, he hears a faint noise in the distance, as though sensing something is wrong. He quickly arms himself and switches off the lights surrounding his property. Checking the peephole again, he's now on high alert. Through it, we see the van Cody, Duke, and Otis were driving. Duke exits the van and knocks on the door, calling out for Wyatt, who is inside, refusing to answer and pretending not to be home. Duke insists he knows Wyatt is in there and probably doesn't want to see them. Hinting at a complicated history, he reveals they're being hunted by them. He adds that they caught one and pleads with Wyatt to let them in, warning that otherwise they're going to die out there and that Wyatt can't let that happen. Not this time. Wyatt opens the peephole to see the trio standing there with the wrapped-up alien before opening the door. But he keeps them at gunpoint, telling Duke that's far enough. Wyatt questions what's under the tarp, and Cody snaps, "You know damn well what's under that tarp." Wyatt remains unimpressed. And as Otis lays the alien down on a table, Wyatt asks if the creature is still alive. He then explains that if this thing dies, they're all in a world of trouble, that killing one will result in more coming back to wipe them all out, implying this would extend to all of humanity. The room falls silent. Wyatt begins poking the alien with the handle of a broom, and everyone is startled when Hope suddenly appears, asking, "What the F is this?" Cody offers to put her in her place, which Hope doesn't appreciate. I wonder why. Otis quickly apologizes, explaining that Cody is just an asshole. Hope notices the alien just as Wyatt ushers her out of the room. She demands to know what she just saw, but Wyatt insists he just needs a minute with the guys, and promises to explain everything once they're gone. Wyatt then turns to the group and tells them to put that thing back where it came from, or so help me. When Duke tries to speak, Wyatt cuts him off, saying it's not his problem. Cody, ever the hothead, threatens to kill the alien, and Wyatt calmly responds that doing so won't bring back Timmy. Cody retorts that he's not going to hide from the beings that took his brother's life. Wyatt urges them to trust him on this, but Cody fires back, saying the last time they trusted him, he made them all look like lunatics, even revealing that his own father blames him for Timmy's death. Wyatt explains that he thought it was better to avoid disclosing their alien abduction, but Cody mocks the idea, questioning how lying to the world was the better alternative. As Otis tries to point out that the alien is moving, Cody suddenly pimp slaps Wyatt, The alien wakes up, turns to the group, and it seems to recognize Wyatt. As the creature begins to struggle, Wyatt is overwhelmed by a high-pitched ringing. After composing himself, he grabs a knife and states that the alien is sending a signal. The boys hold the creature down as Wyatt begins slicing. The alien bites Cody, who screams out in pain as a chunk of flesh is torn from him. It then tries to claw at Wyatt's head while Otis freezes. Cody frantically starts bonking the alien on the head with a wrench, repeatedly. The creature appears to lose consciousness as Wyatt pulls out some of its alien guts, revealing a clicking object resembling the thing Wyatt keeps in a jar. Duke cuts it out and throws it to the floor, and when it stops clicking, Otis stomps on it. Duke, curious how Wyatt knew about the implant, prompts Wyatt to lift his shirt, revealing the massive scar, sarcastically remarking, "Call it a hunch." They glue the alien's wound and tape the creature to the table to ensure it's secured, with the plan to return it to the capture site once the sun rises. Later, Wyatt finds Hope on the phone and confronts her about who she called, but she doesn't answer and expresses her desire to leave. Wyatt tells her he can't let that happen, not until morning. Cody starts to protest as usual, whining and complaining like a child, distracting Wyatt. Meanwhile, Hope locks eyes with the alien through the broken welding mask and appears lost in a trance. She grabs a Gus Fring's speciality, catching everyone's attention, and begins moving toward the alien. Cody says this isn't going to fly, prompting Wyatt to pull a gun on Mr. Big Mouth. Hope starts cutting at the tape restraining the alien as Cody threatens to handle the situation. But Wyatt, believing the creature is toying with them, rushes to intervene, shouting, "No!" He tells Hope to focus on his voice, but she raises the box cutter to her throat. Wyatt quickly turns his attention to the alien, demanding to know what it wants and to let her go. The alien makes a sound, as if speaking, and Wyatt asks, "The gun?" He lowers his weapon and urges Cody to do the same. True to form, Cody protests, prompting everyone to yell at him. He eventually drops the gun but tackles Hope to the floor. Wyatt jumps on top of her, yelling at the alien to stop, which it does, likely due to its weakened state. Later, we see Wyatt spray a circle around the table, warning everyone not to cross the line. They tape up the welding mask and begin boarding up the windows, with Hope being restrained in the bedroom. As Wyatt tends to Duke's leg wound, it's revealed they've spent years hunting for one of the aliens, and it mostly became an excuse for them to hang out and drink, a form of coping. Duke then asks if Wyatt has been coping, to which Wyatt responds, "What do you think?" Meanwhile, we see Otis speaking with Hope. He expresses that he understands how horrible it feels to have one of those things inside you, and that it's something he can relate to. He adds that it's even worse the longer it is. And to be clear, they're talking about the mind control thing, despite how the phrasing might sound. Cody, now in a disgusting bathroom, inspects the bite mark from earlier, and it's bad. Really bad. Not only does it look like the infection has spread to his other arm, but his stomach is also looking worse for wear. And unfortunately, the same goes for down there, much to Cody's disappointment. Otis wants to make a deposit, but can only hear Cody moaning. Meanwhile, Duke has nodded off while on watch, unaware that the alien is poking a hole through the tarp. Wyatt in the bedroom is comforting Hope, taping her mouth shut before hearing a commotion in the garage. When he heads back, he finds Cody wielding a blowtorch, looking even more unstable than usual, expressing a desire to get answers from the alien. We see Otis doing his business. Duke tries to reason with Cody, who then reveals the extent of his infection. Wyatt pulls Duke's arm, warning him not to get too close. Cody, panicking, slowly moves toward them, pushing them past the protective line surrounding the alien. Cody continues taunting them until Otis bonks him on the head. Wyatt drags the unconscious Cody, warning Duke not to touch him. He places Cody in the bathtub and locks him in the bathroom. Duke suggests getting him help, but Wyatt insists that no one can help him, and once again, warning Duke and Otis to stay away from Cody because what he has is contagious. Duke then asks if that's what killed Timmy. Wyatt responds by saying, "It won't take long." Otis goes to check on Hope, and Duke asks Wyatt, "They let us catch it, didn't they?" Wyatt doesn't understand, but Duke believes there's no way they could have caught one the way they did, suggesting it was dropped off intentionally to be captured. As Wyatt heads back to the garage, Duke apologizes, admitting that the aliens knew their dumbasses would bring it back to Wyatt. Suddenly, Wyatt notices that the Spec Ops alien has disappeared, and the lights go out before they can search the garage. Duke and Wyatt close the door to the garage, and Otis knocks on it, asking what's going on. Wyatt tells him to keep the door closed and not let anything in. Otis grabs a rifle as the others collect flashlights and starts sweeping the garage. Otis begins praying. Wyatt follows a trail of orange goo, eventually finding the discarded welding mask. Someone begins banging on the front door, announcing themselves as Sheriff Henderson. Hope has managed to remove the tape from her mouth and starts screaming for help. Otis quickly rushes back into the bedroom to quiet her. Wyatt cautiously opens the door, and we're introduced to the sheriff. who already has his weapon drawn and demands Wyatt to put his hands up. The sheriff questions Wyatt about the lack of lights and the voices he heard. Wyatt explains that the power went out and what he heard was the radio, which he was listening to for updates on when the electricity would be back. Satisfied with this answer, the sheriff lowers his gun and begins looking around the garage. He mentions that they received a 911 call about a hostage, an extraterrestrial one. The sheriff laughs and asks if that makes it the third one this winter. Wyatt corrects him, saying it's the fourth as he shuts the door. The sheriff adds that he thought he'd come check everything out, especially since the call was made from his phone. Noticing an empty beer can, he asks Wyatt if he's been drinking and then requests to have one. We see the sheriff throw back a cold one. As Wyatt continues to look around nervously, Henderson asks for the key to the main house so he can investigate. However, he accidentally steps in some orange goo. The sheriff questions whether it's a radiator leak, but Wyatt is somewhat dismissive, realizing that the alien is likely somewhere in the house. We see Otis lighting a cigarette just as he notices the goo trail heading to the bedroom where Hope is. Meanwhile, Hope frowns as she stares at a curtain. Just then, a creature resembling your mother pops out and jumps underneath the bed, making the whole thing shake violently before showing its ugly mug behind the headboard. Back in the garage, we hear Otis scream, prompting the sheriff to pull his gun on Wyatt. Wyatt suggests that he needs to ram the door and proclaims, "You're gonna have to shoot me, Sheriff." The sheriff fires off a warning shot, prompting Wyatt to begin pleading, as the sheriff warns him that the next shot will be between the eyes. In that moment, Duke tackles the officer into the door. Wyatt enters the bedroom to find Otis on the floor, who begs him not to move. As Otis wishes for his mummy, we see the alien has the man in quite the pickle. Duke and the sheriff enter the room, with Henderson exclaiming, "What the fuh?" upon seeing this gruesome scene. Otis repeats his request not to move, so naturally the officer raises his gun. This leads to an interesting game of tug of war, with the alien continuing to pull even after it's clear that it has won the game and the weapon has been lowered. Wyatt and Duke decide to rush the beast, with the sheriff lending a hand as they try to pin it to the floor. However, there's an accidental weapon discharge. Wyatt proceeds to poke the alien with a pointy object, while Duke bonks it with a rifle. We see the sheriff slowly exit the bedroom. Wyatt confiscates some fingers, and it appears that one rifle bonk has knocked the silly creature out. Wyatt comforts Otis and notices that Hope is gone. Later, he enters the garage to find the sheriff taking a nap and notices the man has a rather nasty leak. The injured sheriff wakes up and asks for a beer. Wyatt hands him one, and the officer takes a sip before stating, "All that shit about you and aliens is true, huh?" They share a chuckle before Wyatt confirms it. The sheriff thinks that's pretty messed up before asking if there's anything harder for him to drink. As Wyatt leaves to collect better alcohol, it appears Henderson succumbs to the self-inflicted gunshot. Wyatt then heads outside to find Hope sitting in a car. She tells him to kill the alien, and he refuses. She offers to do it herself and hops out to do just that, but Wyatt explains that doing so will only make things worse. She wants clarity on what he means by worse, asking if he saw what it just did as she beats up on it. Wyatt pulls her in for a hug, telling her he cares. Back inside, Wyatt tells Cody through the door that they're leaving to take Otis to a hospital. Cody weeps, expressing that he hates that people think he killed his brother, specifically his father. He wishes he could drop that monster right on the doorstep of his father's house. Wyatt unlocks the bathroom door. Duke and Wyatt load a crate containing the alien into the back of the van. Duke chooses to stay behind, citing that Cody is his responsibility. The childhood friends hug, and Duke offers a bye buddy as they part ways. As Wyatt drives, he keeps an eye on the star-filled sky. Hope asks why they came back, and Wyatt explains that they let the others go after the second night, testing them all. However, he and Timmy went through additional trials. Timmy got sick like Cody, and they kept doing more and more to Wyatt. They altered it, hence the name of the movie. Then, one morning, he woke up a couple of counties away, butt-ass naked. He could feel the tracking device inside him, and after having it cut out, he went into hiding. He guesses they now want him back, and Hope tells him they're scared of him. She could sense how scared shitless it was of him when it was in her head, a feeling Wyatt shares towards them. Suddenly, he stops the van, hearing a high-pitched noise. He tells Hope to shush when she questions him. He turns off the car and reveals that he can sense them, lots of them. Hope, not wanting that van to be their coffin, exits to begin walking. Wyatt doesn't think this is cool and goes after her, saying Otis is still back there. She reveals he died 10 minutes ago. Wyatt responds with a shocked, "Nuh-uh," before returning to the van to confirm this fact. He goes through the 5 stages of grief and then proceeds to go nuts on the crate. However, once the tarp rips, he finds it's the sheriff's body. We cut back to Duke, who is having way too much fun with the alien visitor. He squeezes its head in a vice, spits on it, shows it a photograph of Timmy, and lists the names of his friends these alien beatards stole 15 years ago. After he pours gasoline on the alien and attempts to light it, Cody pops in and collapses to the floor. Duke heads over to him, getting way too intimate with a guy who looks like a steamed dim sum that has been left to rot for a week. We see the alien loosen the vise. Meanwhile, Wyatt catches up with Hope in the van and tells her to get help. Given the romantic situation, the two begin making out. She takes off in the van, and he makes off on foot. As he makes his way back home, something causes him to stop. He kneels down and closes his eyes, and we see countless aliens walk past him, his surroundings now flattened. Back home, Wyatt finds the garage to be an absolute mess, and picks up a shotgun before continuing onward. He finds Duke, who has several new piercings and a brand new tracking device installed in his long belly worm. Wyatt asks where it's gone, and Duke, after stating the obvious, tells him to run. Wyatt continues to search the house and discovers that Cody is no longer in the bathroom when the alien jumps him. Now in the bathtub, the beast takes a little nibble on Wyatt. However, he manages to get free from the creature by spraying it in the eyes with an aerosol can. Wyatt proceeds to collect the shotgun as he crawls out of the bathroom. Fumbling with the weapon gives the alien enough time to leap at him, and the creature begins to wail on him. This steamy romp is interrupted when Duke asks the alien to get off him. Nicely. The creature then leaps onto Duke and quickly eats him to death. Wyatt starts going off on the little green dude, using Sam L. Jackson's catchphrase and referring to the thing as a female dog. The two lock eyes and enter some kind of psychic battle, which Wyatt appears to be losing. Just then, a harpoon strikes the alien, pinning it against the wall. The rotten dim sim appears and has the gall to call the alien ugly, getting up in its face to gloat and allowing the little guy to mind control him. What happens next is just really gross. Cody continues to whack on Wyatt, but the rotting man is falling apart, breaking his own bones and collapsing to the floor. Wyatt tells the alien he's had enough and gets right up in its face to say this, prompting a second mind frick battle. This time, Wyatt makes the creature his B word. Now knowing what they want, he asks the alien to call them off, and he'll go with them willingly. Wyatt begins to argue with it, but Hope just pops the space toad before providing a really cringe-worthy quip. Wyatt checks on Cody, who asks him to do to him what he did to Timmy. Wyatt stands over him, and we see a flash paired with a stock gun sound effect. Light surrounds the house, and figures can be seen running past the windows. Wyatt extends his hand to Hope and takes her to a hatch that leads underneath the house, then enters another hatch. Wyatt begins priming and charging a number of explosives, holding on to Hope, literally, as he triggers the detonation. The house explodes and this weird ship leapfrogs away. At sunrise, we see Wyatt rise from the bomb shelter, with Hope having survived the night as well. Later, we see someone ring a doorbell. An unknown man answers the door and is visibly shocked, managing only to say, "What the frog?" And we then see a crispy alien. Hope asks Wyatt if they're all right now, and he can only provide her with a faint smirk and a very short, "We'll see," as he looks up toward the sky. And that's Altered. Thank you so much for watching. Please make sweet love to that like button if you enjoyed this recap, and be sure to subscribe to become a homie. I try to post recaps as often as I can. This video's word of the day is bugger, which is an informal noun that can refer to a fellow or a lad. It's a versatile word that can be used affectionately or abusively. On that note, thanks again for watching, you little buggers, and until next time, bye-bye.